Land, the foundation for everything that sustains our livelihoods and the stability of our economy. We will all worry less when we each better manage land. Land is our foothold and our foundation. Let's all be responsible caretakers.
A message from the OECS Secretariat, supported by the Australian Government, UN Habitat, and the University of the West Indies.
Join the recycling efforts. Take your old vehicle battery to the landfill and get $5 in return.
A public service message from the Dominica Solid Waste Management Corporation in collaboration with DBS Radio.
Bus drivers, your passengers are your daily bread. Don't compromise his or her life. Ensure that your vehicle is in top performance. Regularly check your vehicle. It could save your life and the life of others.
A public service announcement in collaboration with the Health Promotion Resource Center and DBS Radio.
Okay, let me just apologize to the viewers and the listeners for the short interruption that we just had, and got someone to assist. Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols Dennis, for really coming to our assistance. And it's good that we can, listen and look at our social media platform to really get the answers to some of the problems that we would have encountered. And so I really thank those persons who spoke with me via the social media to inform me that our audio was not the best. So I just want to say thank you to these people. So we are back. All right. So, Patrick, we were talking about SMA and how you were able to be accepted and why you chose the St. Mary's Academy.
Correct. And so I think I shared with you that I started SMA in 1990, and the principal at the time was Brother Edward Jermaine, and I was, actually remembering that. So my vivid memories is that Clayton Christian, Lima Sharptooth, he was my homeroom teacher. I think he taught us, if I recall properly, religious studies and science. And I actually ran into Daryl Bob earlier this week, and I told him he was my first head boy. And I remember my math teacher being Dale Dangleben from Point Michel. He's a doctor now, and he just started a clinic in Point Michel as well. So SMA is where I want to say I became a man. And, even Brother Jermaine was like a father figure to me. And I did a lot in SMA, from focusing on my studies, making lifelong friends. One of my best friends from SMA is like Carlos Ferrara. I was here 2 months ago for his dad's funeral. So show you how close we are as friends. Mr. Kidder Ferrara, bless his soul. And another good friend of mine is Jonathan Johnson. His mom, again, ended up being like a mom to me as well. She is Mrs. Valentin Johnson. She was the principal of Convent Prep for a number of years. But yeah, so SMA, as I said, a lot happened at SMA for me. My brother Jermaine, for my 5 years there was days that, if I didn't have lunch or breakfast or something like that, or even come in the evenings to study, I would always be fed at the brother's house. So I have a lot of reverence for SMA. And even I remember in those 5 years of SMA, we raised money to build the new wing, the Brother Egbert Jermaine wing at the SMA. And we raised a lot of funds for that came. That building was built a few years later, and even right now, I think that building. Well, I know that building, the roof was damaged by Hurricane Maria, and for the last, I think, 3-4 years, that last floor of that building, they have to be able to have classes on that floor. And I'm also part of a committee that is raising funds to repair that roof. So if anyone is listening, I'm going to I want to say a shameless plug for that as well. If you want to go to SMA alumnifund.org and make a donation to add to the pool for us to raise that money to repair that roof. And you're gonna hear my SMA story right now, where if it wasn't for SMA, I can tell someone that I wouldn't be the person I am today. So a lot of it is thanks to SMA, and we can really get deep into the weeds of things that happened to me at SMA.
Transition from primary school, now first form, your form teacher, Mr. Sharptooth, and teaching you science and religion.
Right.
How were you able to intermingle or exchange conversation, shy guy, as you said, with guys who are excited now in first form?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, I want to say, and I explained to my wife, when I explain to people that, especially in the States, it's almost like a cultural shock, right? Because I grew up in Point Michel, everybody knows me, and I remember that one of the times it became almost apparent to me that persons had difficulties understanding me, or I spoke too softly or too quickly, was that, remember I told you I was one of the brightest kids in the class. And what the teachers would tend to do is to call on the brightest kid to read all the time, but they would hardly ever call on me. And only after I grew up, I realized, hey, people couldn't understand what you were saying, so what's the point of calling you to read, even if you're that intelligent, but you can express yourself? And one of the times it became apparent to me when I came to SMA is, I remember one of our, and I probably wouldn't call his name, he's still a good friend, I wouldn't call his name, but the teacher made fun of me on my lips, right? Everything is, and I realized the reason that kind of disappeared right now, if you want to fast forward like 20 plus years in the future, if you see me smiling a lot right now, you would see that growing up, I would not have been smiling a lot. I wasn't proud of my smile because an entire teeth could fit in my upper and lower. So I had a big gap where teeth could fit on my top row and my bottom row. And I attributed that to my lips, because if I'm speaking...
Was it natural or...
It was natural, and I had braces.
Normally it is said that when you have this...
lips. Yeah.
This separation...
Right.
It means that person has a bag of sugar down there. That's what has been said. I don't know if it's a myth. But as you're laughing, Erica Louise Joel said that she's watching and she's in. And Sheppy is also Shepherd Pond, not your cousin Sheppy, but Shepherd Pond said that he's also watching.
Right.
And I'm told that it's better. The audio is better. Thank you.
All right, excellent. But yeah, so I was made fun of when I got to SMA. That's why I was trying to get to that. That's what I was trying to get to, right? I was made fun of when I got to SMA because, again, growing up in Point Michel, again, if you get back to that story, people didn't mess with me or tease me because I had a tribe. So if you did that, you'd probably get beat in Point Michel.
A tribe at SMA or tribe
at Point Michel, right? I try to figure because it's a cultural shock. Because in Point Michel, I wasn't get teased. I wasn't bullied. They probably tried that earlier on, right? In like my lower, if you try to bully me, I have a tribe, right? In Point Michel, right? You get beat if you try to mess with me, make fun of me or try to pick on me, right? I would have a gang, right, to handle you. But when I got to SMA, that was a whole different ball game. So I was picked on. I was teased, right, for the way I spoke. I remember one time, one of my buddies, Nigel Henry, where Nigel is right now, they came to play soccer in football in Point Michel, and they pointed to them where I lived, and he started to call me Jungle Jim. You know now, huh? You're low. I cannot hear you.
I was saying, why jungle gym?
Because of where we lived, everybody lives. We live literally in Point Michel. We're still here. It's called Lavade Estate. We have no neighbors next to us. If you look from the playing field and you look up there, it's like a jungle,
Okay. All right.
And so I got teased a lot in SMA, and that was for me a cultural shock. And then, so imagine it even put me bigger in a shell, and actually that made what I call a career choice for me. Right. So as you can tell, I said I'm a very expressive person. My passion is to be a speaker, to inspire people. When I hear of the high rate of suicide, and recently an SMA student committed suicide, I had a relative commit suicide, and when I hear that, I there's so much I can offer people that dealing with difficult times, and let them know that it's like everybody's going through stuff. If this world was easy, it wouldn't be. It would be bored, right? So if you're going through something, that's what you came here for. If you not, as long as one of the guys I listen to a lot, his name is Les Brown. He say if you're not going through something is coming. You're always going to be dealing with something. You're not alone, right? But one of the things I speak is just inspire the youth, right, to think that, hey, this is called life. Whatever you think you're dealing with, it's life, right? And I speak on inspiring them, but not to get sidetracked too much. But so I felt that being teased for how I spoke, I became very shy, more shy evenly, and more reserved. So I'd probably only speak to my closest friends. I played a lot of basketball. I eventually made it to my high school basketball team. That was my claim to fame. And even talking about basketball, I'm thinking about Cuthbert Elwin. Again, this is the SMA connection. He was a heavy influence in my life. So the things he shared with me, and I think I will share later. I actually became a teacher at SMA, so I even became closer to him. And but just that SMA experience was a lot, and I still excelled, but I tended to focus on subjects like mathematics, physics, computer education.
No, we have not reached that
Yes.
distance. So while you're in 101, first form, did you see the same achievement that you would have received in primary school, coming out first, getting awards? Did that continue in first form?
It did. I would say I was hungry back then for to show off my skills. So yes. So when I think I vividly remember that was probably first one of my best report card. I probably averaged like a 90 or 85 or an A in all subjects. Right by the end of my first report card, I got first honors all the way through. Right, and I wanted to show the other kids that. Maybe I passed 13, and I was like, what? If I'd gone to like a convent prep or SMP, I'd probably top 5. So I wanted to show the other kids that came in at top 5 that was better than them. So that I was there, that first was there. So I did excel in first form. But as the years went along, I became more selective, and I started doing more open stuff, right? So what I realized that you couldn't just be all academics, and I think I got that kind of coaching from Mr. Elwin. It's like you want to be a little bit more well-rounded. So I started to, so again, playing sports and being outgoing was ironically the challenge for me. So I used to work harder at soccer, harder at football, harder at sports than at schoolwork just to excel. And almost, I guess, to fit in as well, to be a well-rounded kid.
So let's go into, it's almost the same in second form. Now, selective in third form, you are on the bridge of making a decision as to what subjects you would want to go into. You would have done your science in first, second, and maybe third form you would have had, maybe what you would have done, maybe humans, social biology, what was it called?
Just biology. Biology, chemistry, physics.
No, in third form.
Yeah. So at that time, they were kind of almost, they did back then, kind of quasi-select you. You could opt out, but they would have picked the kids with the with the best scholastic grades and force them into the sciences indirectly. They still say you had a choice. When you went to fourth form, you could say, you know what, I don't want to do science, I want to go into business. But few kids went that route. They would have kind of almost pre-select you at that time.
So at that time, you know, foot from bright.
Right.
Yes, you're shy, but in high school, you have convent, you have Wesley High School, you have grammar school, you have community high school. No girlfriend at that time?
Not really. You know, it was still fun times back then. I mean, I would, you know, again, I was shy, you know, and I remember telling myself, you know, what are you really offering the ladies? You know, you humble beginnings, you don't have a telephone at your home, right? You know, I used to have to give my cousin's telephone number to call me. So probably flirting around, right? Hang out at the library, hang out at the tennis club, right? So I made a few even girls I was interested in at that time, but nothing serious like that, no. So I wanted a few guys. I probably didn't get a serious girlfriend until I left fifth form. Maybe it was a square, you know. But I just felt that I didn't have anything to offer them. I guess that was in my mindset. I think that if you have a girl and to go on a date, you want to spend some money, you want to call you, and to have something that I think that she would want to value, right? I didn't think I had any of those things at that time, so it wasn't anything too serious.
No. I know you spoke earlier on about not having lights.
Yeah, but that's a bad light.
But I have not come to the level to ask you. But what time did you know have light at home? Because now you're in high school.
Yeah.
At what time?
No, we had lights by the time I was 10. You know, that's about 10. But what we didn't have when I moved, so if you want to get that, by the time I was in high school, I was living with my stepdad. I call my dad my father. By that time, by the time I was 10 years old, right, I was living with my dad and my mom full time. But ironically, based on what you were saying, right, one of the things that happened, one of the transitions that happened, I remember around 10 years old as well, I was a really important time in my life where, you said my stepdad was strict, so I was like, I don't want to go live with him. So I tried to go and live with my grandma. They said, we'll let you have it, but guess what happened? My grades dropped. One semester stayed on. And they're like, you cannot be there. And that was it. And they closed up on that. You know, I couldn't, because at my grandma, my grandma is older, you stay up all night. I'd be hanging with my cousins, everything you're not supposed to be doing as a 10-year-old. You should be studying and in bed. By 10, right, I'm out there with my cousins, I'm late at night playing Uno, doing all kind of stuff, dominoes, probably playing pool, all this stuff but studying your schoolwork, right? So I did that for one semester, for one term. At my grade job, and my mom was like, "You're gonna come and live with us. You don't have a choice in the matter."
That is something else. All right. So in while in high school, because I would have gone through it, and many other persons would have gone through it, that they would say to you at a certain time, light has to go off. Did you have that experience?
Where in high school, in terms of home?
In terms of home.
Yeah, they did. They did. Lights have to go off. You have to be in bed by 8, 9 o'clock. Yes, they did that. One of the things I would do, as I said, is talking about the experience, you bring something back that's very vivid to me, where I wanted to fit in, right? So if you're trying to serve two masses, trying to be an A student, and you're still trying to play sports and all that stuff, at some point, to be good in sports, you have to practice. So I'm practicing basketball all the time, and what I would do is, especially when it comes to exam time, I would have to cram. So I'd have to wake up. I'd wake up early in the middle of the night to wake up to study. Right? So I had to make sure I get all my homework done and get all my studies done before getting back to school the next day. So I'd have to wake up in the middle of the night to study with the lights, yes.
Okay. No. One of the things that is interesting when you're going to school is food.
Mm-hmm.
What the kind of foods that you would have been given by your parents, and I'm sure that you too, like every other boy, would indulge in ice cream, in tablets, in coconut cheese. Yeah, help us to have an understanding of that.
It's just regular stuff, bread and bread and butter, bread and cheese, bread and sausage for breakfast. But when it comes to food, I think I remember one of my recess days in SMA. when we get our donuts and our big Coke, and then they'll be Rasta come and sell us Ital pie, and that's
Kabe? Kabe?
I think he's from New York, that's his name,
okay.
right? They would have an Ital pie, and that's why I remember buying 4 donuts for $1. I know you probably can get that now.
You might get 1 donut for $4.
Exactly. Right, that's what you probably get now, right? Bread and bakes and tuna, bakes and cheese, bakes and and the vendors at SMA, they were relationship with them over the years, man. For me, those were great times, right? And times when you got to your CXC days, when you used to come out and you used to come back to school and study, and by get bread in the bakery right next to SMA, those hot fresh bread, right? And
Steve Bakery,
right, and as you say that, I know many of you, I just said a while ago that every time I see him, one of my good buddies, at that time, tears come to my eye. I know many of you know Calendar Faustin.
Yes,
he's one
very
of those
intelligent
guys.
guy.
Huh?
He was a very intelligent guy.
Yeah, he was my classmate. He was one of the guys that would be back there, studying with us and breaking bread. And I just said a while ago, and I helped him out a little bit. But every time I see him, he remembers me, so that's good. But my brother telling me he doesn't know this guy. Like, I was like, yeah, if you knew him back then, man. But he, Brent Sims, all of us would be back there, studying at school, breaking bread. And that's when it comes to food, that's what I remember. And you shared earlier where a lot of times if I didn't have a meal, right, Brother Jermaine would, bring me to the brother's house and, feed me when they're having dinner and that kind of stuff. So these fun times when I said SMA, you heard me say SMA really made me who I am today. That's like a really big part of my life. And that's when I went through my rebellious stage, right? And I would be in SMA a lot of time studying nights and weekends. I made a lot of lifelong friends from those days.
Now, in reference to 4th form and 5th form,
Mm-hmm.
still doing very well.
Yes.
Still achieving.
Yes. The difference is that I was trying to be more well-rounded. And so when you asked me, I think you asked a question earlier about choosing subjects, right? And even if I said we had a choice to do business subjects, what I always liked in life is a challenge, right? So one of the things when everyone say you cannot do this, or this is the hardest subject, or this is the hardest this, right? So everybody said that, maths and physics is the hardest subjects. And guess what? They become my favorite subjects, right? Math and physics, they'd be my favorite subject. And again, talk about math and physics, he passed away as well. Adrian Durant was, again, a mentor, a role model, brilliant guy. We used to call him Brother Reds. I don't know. Again, person that went to SMA would have known him.
Well, I know him very well. He
yes.
was my best buddy. Reds, we were neighbors. I was living 70 Baffin Street and he was living 71.
Oh, wow.
So we were buddies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
As we saying that, right, he didn't know. He was an interesting guy. He didn't know we used to call him Brother Reds, right? He didn't know that. And what happened was, and again, I hope he's listening, he actually works, I think, at Domlec. His name is Dalton Ilwa. And we're in either 5th form or a 4th form. And, I think that's the time we used to switch classes. So Ilwa walks into the classroom and he's like, oh man, Brother Reds now. And Adrian, he's walking right behind him. And that's when he found out that we call him Brother Reds.
Brother Reds. I didn't know that at all. If I knew that then, I would be teasing Reds by calling him Brother Reds.
Exactly. When he saw that he totally got red, he's a high yellow one, right? He actually got red when he heard him.
No, Reds never liked any nickname besides Reds.
Yeah.
And he took some time to accept Reds, eh? So you're in 4th form, 5th form,
right?
Doing well. Tell us your preparation now. SBAs from 4th form, preparing for 5th form. Tell us what went on during that period.
Yeah, so we'd study a lot, and we'd spend a lot of time at SMA. We'd go back in the evenings, and just from doing that, and I thought I was really, one of the things about me is that I was really naturally brilliant, right? So it didn't take that much for me to retain information and to learn stuff. it's really easy for me to focus. And so the schoolwork came almost naturally to me, right? What I would literally, quote unquote, struggle in was playing sports, right? I remember literally not making that school football team for 3 years in a row, and I finally gave up.
You're from Lapwet?
I'm from Lapwet.
That's
But remember, I told you I was chubby. I wasn't fat, right? So I couldn't run.
I can imagine what Vincent Badu would have said to you.
Yeah, and I used to play goalie, and I just couldn't cut it, man. And I remember Sir Charles, I don't think I even made the B team. I just couldn't make the team, man, in soccer. And I would try hard. And schoolwork, I just study one night and, I'll get an, I'd ace that, right? But what had changed is when I learned how to play basketball. I became very good at basketball. So I guess basketball is saving grace. When I got to fifth form, I did end up being on the school basketball team. Because anybody that knew me from those days know I was really good at basketball. But back to the schoolwork part of it, so what helped a lot is that we just spent a lot of time at the school, just studying and, just being there every night doing schoolwork. We were not out chasing girls, right? We were actually studying, and there were not a lot of video games. There were not a lot of distractions. Our only distraction is us sitting down and talking crap for about an hour before we decide we're going to study. And then, as you said, the lights would go off when Brother Jimmy decide, hey, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, guys, you guys need to go home.
So how you get transport to go to
that's a good point, man. Just bum ride, man.
I mean, after night studies, from 7 to 11.
Yeah, just bum ride, boy.
You're telling me you have to bum ride?
Or walk sometimes, or,
That was commitment.
That was commitment, man. And then, you and my cousin there, Fridges, I was his, so he was he was the one that was good in sports. I was the one good in education. So we kind of rubbed off each other. And at some point, he would come and study with me at SMA. And then we would bomb right together and all that stuff and go up. And, we get more into the weeds. You get later on. My cousin Erica was working at KFC, and at that time he was a boyfriend. His husband now, Gregory, would pick her up and we'd get a ride home. But let's get into the weeds. But yeah, we'd make it work. we did it. We'd make it work. But it's a lot of studying. We did a lot of studies. SBAs, what really got it done was spending all that time at SMA doing the work.
Wow, that's interesting.
So almost like a 12-hour school day.
Mm-hmm. and then fifth form, you're getting classes, but yes, you're preparing for CXC.
Uh-huh.
How many subjects would you have done at that time?
I think I did 8 subjects. I did. But because I had already done history in 4th form, I'd gotten an A in history. That time we were still doing GCE. So I left it behind, right? So I did math. I was doing math, physics, chemistry, French, biology, English, agriculture. Yeah, and again, talk about agriculture. Good memories, man. Aurelius Jolly. He's not at SMA anymore, right? But Jolly, he's a staple, man. He taught us agriculture at SMA. And agriculture at that time, they considered like a double subject. Yeah, so these are the subjects, about 8 subjects I think I did. 7 or 8 subjects at CXC.
Pass all?
I passed all of them. Mm-hmm. And I think I got 2 ones. Again, my 2 proudest ones, math and physics, and the rest were 2s.
Mm-hmm. No. So you have finished high school.
Uh-huh.
Graduation day now, tell me.
So even before we get to that, right, something significant happened in my SMA days as well, as far as education goes. And that shaped my future career. Where, again, so you remember you said I told you I went to high school, I had my own scholarship. And at 10 years old, I decided that the government owes me a scholarship because I got my own scholarship. The Rotary Club, they paid for my uniforms, right? They helped me get uniforms, and the government got the books because I had a scholarship, but I kept up my grades. And when it was 1995 or 1994, somewhere when I was in 3rd form or 4th form, the SMA had a 94-ish. The SMA had a computer program. Right, they had an IT program by a guy named Chris. I don't remember Chris' last name, but I think Grayson Stedman was his assistant at that time. and they had a program that cost about 150, introduction to computer program, that cost about 150 to do. And again, my parents couldn't afford to send me to that program, so I just went again to the Rotary Club. They gave me the funds to that program, and that program changed my life. And the way it changed my life significantly was that at that time, we had something called a typing room in SMA, and I didn't take typing. And I learned how to type on a program called Mavis Beacon Typing Tutor. And I said that if that program can teach you to type, computers is the future. And I vowed there and then to learn how to do every single thing for computer. So fast forward 40 plus years in the future, I'm one of the few individuals that can brag that I can do every single thing in a computer. I have the degrees and the work experience to prove it. Every single thing.
Okay, so graduation.
Yes.
Tell us about that grand day, preparing to go to college and the likes.
Yeah, so the graduation from SMA, I want to say, it was bittersweet. I remember a few things about that time. Again, I did well. I did get a prize at graduation. I got the prize for history, right, because I'd gotten an A in fourth form. But there were some guys that I guess probably studied a little bit harder than me. Our head boy, I haven't seen him since that time. It's Geoffrey. What's Geoffrey's last name, boy? Never mind Geoffrey's last name right now. But he wasn't the head boy, but he was the valedictorian. He was the valedictorian, and we call him Brainy. If I remember his last name, I'll share it. But those experiences were good. It's a small class, 56 students, and I'm in the U.S. now, and I see they have graduation classes of 500 students plus. I was like, wow, my entire school had 400 kids. Or you have a graduation class with 500 students. But yeah, graduation was exciting, and yeah. What else you want me to share about experience?
And then you had to go to, or I should ask you, did you then go to tertiary right after?
I did.
Did you go and work?
I did. Talk about graduation, right? I told you it's not a girlfriend, and again, I said you're gonna hear me reference to Rotary Club a lot around that time. I went to them and said, hey, graduation. They gave me a graduation gift of $400, right? At that time. I guess it was a long way back then.
Your cousin said Douglas.
Oh yeah, Geoffrey Douglas. He called him Brady. I was a Geoffrey man in years. But yeah, so I graduated, and I remember the Rotary Club giving me $400 for graduation. And I have to say a lot to those guys, a lot about those guys. They were really great. And I didn't go to prom with that money. I think I remember buying some clothes with that money, some fresh gear. Because I didn't have any girlfriend to go to prom with, so I was like, I'm not going to prom, And yeah, so from there I went to teacher education. I went to the college after that.
And from there you went into the work setting. What did you became a teacher from what you said earlier on at St. Mary's Academy?
Yeah, so I went to the college, right, for 2 years, and I studied computer science and mathematics and physics, and I am a drop in physics. It just became boring. I wasn't interested. I guess it dropped me and I dropped it. I wasn't studying as much and kind of, lost interest in it, and I focused on computers. Again, I told you computers is the future, and I remember Sanderson. I think he's still there. They told me he's still there. Probably I was somebody else saying hi to him. I wouldn't know his first name. I just knew him as Mr. Sanderson. I can't remember his first name. But I think he's still at the college. And he was a good influence, a good teacher as well. And what happened, again, that time too was very fundamental in my life, because what happened at that time in the college, that's when it was called Civil Call or CDCC. It was by the Windsor Park Stadium. And they had a computer room there. And something very pivotal happened. I spent a lot of time in the computer room doing computer programming, getting familiar with the internet. And remember, that's 1995. Most persons did not know what the internet was at that time. So we were one of the first ones on the internet all day. me, my friend Jonathan Johnson, Hilkiah Lavigne, we were on that computer all day, learning programming and just doing stuff on the internet as well at that time. And because our teacher was gone, so we had a key to the computer room, the computer lab. So that was a big deal. So we would be there Sunday to Sunday, 24/7, programming and just becoming more intelligent in that craft. Those were good times.
Yeah. So what in all of this you're saying, what did the Lakou taught you?
Growing up in Point Michel? It's just really staying up on the straight and narrow. I told you I wasn't allowed to, even though I wanted to be one of these kids that wasn't staying focused. One of the things that I think I learned a lot is just listening to your elders. And, just growing, even like I said right now, I'm in Point Michel right now, and I see people I haven't seen in years. And, they're all friends for me and all family. And not one of them can tell you I've cursed, especially, the ones older than me. Not one of them can tell you that I ever said anything bad or cursed them out, right? Because of the reverence we're having for older people, just respecting us. Just growing up in Lakou, what it taught me is to respect your elders. And once you respect your elders, good things will happen to you because they look out for you. You get what I'm saying? They always, I gotta say, everybody in that community look out for me.
You became a teacher then, St. Mary's Academy. How long? And what caused you to decide that you want to go further?
Yeah, so a number of things, right? So I first taught at the grammar school. I forgot to share that. So when I graduated from college, I got a job as a computer technician, and they're not there anymore. His guy name was Milton Francis, I think that was his name. He had a small computer shop, and I worked there for 2 years. But I didn't like it. I didn't like fixing computers, And the results from the A-levels came out, and what they would do at that time is just, the best students in those subjects, they would invite them to come and teach. And that's what happened to me at grammar school. I got invited to come and teach computer technology, information technology, and mathematics, right? And even then, I said my confidence was low because it was still very difficult for people to understand me at that time, right? But a lot of my mentors, you mentioned Reds and Christian and Dangleben, all those guys who were teachers. I was like, I want to do that when I graduate from college, right? So that was my calling. I enjoy teaching. So I taught math and information technology at the grammar school, right? And I did that for 2 years. And then I got recruited to come and teach at SMA. I taught at SMA. I also used to teach, I taught SMA for 1 year. And I also used to teach in the evenings. I used to teach math for persons trying to do CXC, right, that failed. And, I don't even still have that program right now, but evening classes for persons trying to get their CXC math grade because they failed or they didn't have the opportunity to do it. I taught that. And I also was one of the youngest people to teach at the college, or one of the only people to teach at the college without a degree. I taught the first year students computer science when, again, Mr. Sanderson was gone on some study leave for a while. So I taught them for about a year, the first year students.
And how you happen to decide that you had enough in reference to the classroom, right, but wanted to go and get your first degree.
Correct. So it was a really personal, and it was a very personal choice. It was very emotional to make a decision, and a number of things led to that decision. One, a number of my friends, they were leaving to go and study. Most of what I consider my close friends, they went to study, right? And I said, I'm here helping my mom, helping my family. I'm the first one, to make it. And what you didn't mention, they were not having no lights. What we didn't have for a long time was no water. So for the first 18 years of my life, we didn't have any running water. And, I was telling my wife, she see me well built. It's like when I go to the gym, I don't have to do upper body work anymore because that, when I told you that the guy was coming jungle gym, I used to have to fetch water from that playing field up to that jungle.
Wow, that's a distance.
Yeah, every morning and every evening, right? So that built those muscles, right? And that's the reality for the first 8 years of my life, right? And So, I started teaching. I put water at our home. I built myself a room and started living, the life at that. And I was very, for lack of a better word, very comfortable, right? 3 years in, making a decent salary. I was teaching part-time, but I wasn't a lot. I was teaching part-time. I was teaching full-time. I was also fixing computers, and I was selling CDs. I know my buddy Heads might be listening right now from Musicland. I'm one of kind of me that show him the ropes of how to download music online and get it from Napster. Napster was big in those days, and I have the technology knowledge. I used to burn CDs. I used to ask people to make their selections, print out a list, make a selection. I don't want to digress too much, but I just give you my story.
No, that's important.
And I used to burn CDs for them, right? And all of that stuff, man. So these were fun times. I really enjoyed those times. I had an ex-girlfriend. I had a little boy at that time, and we were living together. And a lot. I was living a full life at 21. And I wanted to go and study because I felt that I had, at 21, I think I was experiencing almost what they call burnout, just doing a lot for a 21-year-old. And my real ambition was to go and further my studies. And I remember having a conversation, with one of the persons I really look up to. She was, a mother figure, like a second mom to me, and that's Mrs. Valentine Johnson. My buddy's Jonathan Johnson, a mom, and she said, you're a young man. You got to do what you got to do. You have to put yourself first sometimes, and that really sank with me because I feel like I was getting frustrated. Like I had more to achieve from an educational standpoint, and that was a decision. And then in 1999, the government was, we were about to turn 21, and the government was deciding to spend a bunch of money. And it's like, we're going to make we're going to bring on Michael Jordan, we're going to do all of those things. I'm like, you know what, guys, you all owe me a scholarship. That scholarship I told you I didn't get when I was 10 years old. That scholarship I was supposed to get by the government when I was about to go and pass government entrance, right? That if I had passed, they were given to me. I just tell myself that these guys owe me a scholarship. So I went, you just say he's listening right now to Felix Gregor. I think he was the PS of education at that time, right? So I went to him and said, hey, I want a scholarship to go and study. I was saying, no, he's like, well, I'm the PS, I really don't know about that, but if you want to talk to someone, go and speak to Sheridan Gregor. And Sheridan Gregor is at the time, I think, handling those affairs, independence affairs, right? And again, the second I went to talk to Sheridan Gregor, he said, you know what, I don't know about that, but I'll bring it up to the PM, I'll bring it up, And that was it. A few weeks later, I was awarded a scholarship to go and further my education.
So you got that opportunity.
Uh-huh.
You went where?
So the scholarship where it would have been the equivalent scholarship to go and study at UWI. And I said, I want to study technology. I have to go to study where technology is being made. And that's the US. And at that time, there were schools, but again, it's not, by the US standard, it's not a lot of money because the top universities cost X amount. So I had to find a university that would fit within the budget of what the government was willing to pay for that scholarship. And at that time, there were schools in Midwestern, in Wichita Falls, Texas, one called Midwestern, and one in Lawton, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, called Cameron University. They were recruiting the Caribbean. So I went to study at Cameron University. And I studied computer science and mathematics.
Mm-hmm. And continue doing well.
Yes, I continued well. Actually, I graduated. And fun fact, that's the same school that, my cousin, she's a power rep, Dennis Charles, we went to that college together, So that's a fun factoid. We went to that same school in Cameron, in Oklahoma. And I graduated ahead of time. So I did that degree in like 3.5 years.
Okay.
Right? And after that, I moved to San Antonio, Texas. And from an education standpoint, I worked in technology. I did tech support, and I I did tech support. I also worked for several tech companies, and I also worked for the U.S. Air Force for about 2 years, doing some computer programming and doing some stuff for them. And in that same process, I got a master's degree. So I also have a master's degree, an MBA specialized in MIS, and I like to brag that working full time, going to school full time, I graduated for 4.0 because I was very upset that I didn't graduate for 4.0 in my in my undergrad. So like for the masters, I'm going to get a 4.0. And for those of you listen, I don't know what a 4.0 is to graduate with all A's in all your subjects.
Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. So I like to brag. I put in some effort to do that. You know.
And then you go into the working setting, you have forgotten Dominica for some time, and you decided that you are now going to take advantage of the mainland. Help us to understand what was the process that you went through.
To do what exactly?
To start to work.
To work
in the United States.
United States?
In the United States. Because you didn't come back home?
Right. I didn't come back home. Right. So I was in the tech space, right? So I worked, as I said, I worked doing tech support at one point when I just graduated in 2003, the economy was tight. Then I worked for some other companies. Then I worked for the U.S. Air Force doing computer programming. And then I left. So I was in Texas for about 8.5 years. I left. I went to Miami. And my thought process was to get as much, to put that knowledge to use, right? To get as much as possible. But also in addition to that, to keep the education arm on. Because if you're trying to be in corporate America, if you're trying to be that kind of person, you have to keep your education. It goes hand in hand. And one of the ways I saw it pay major dividends is when I got hired by Florida International University. I got a salary bump because I got hired on, and a salary bump because I had a master's degree. Right?
And at that time, what did you think of Dominica? Did you think of coming back home? Now you have a master's. Did you think of coming back home?
So at that time, not necessarily. I mean, I would come home. I would come home and visit, see my family, right? I became a U.S. citizen in that process. I got my mom a green card. That's a separate story. And, just focus on taking care of my family and helping out. But what was always in my head is that if I come back home, my source of income cannot depend on the country's economy. Because the country really has, we have a brain drain, right? We have limited resources. I mean, I come back, the people that I left doing that same job, they're a teacher 20 years ago, they're still a teacher today. They work in the bank, they still work in the bank. They drive in bus, they still drive in bus. There's few people that have different professions, different jobs, right? And for me, I was already at that stage, when I left, right? So I feel that I cannot come back and do something where I have to depend on the country's economy. From that standpoint, like the country doesn't have, quote unquote, enough for me from that standpoint, right? For my lifestyle, the income I want to make. So at that time, I couldn't picture myself come back home and be dependent on any kind of, profession and resource in Dominica, right? And it's twofold. When if I had to think about it, it's like have someone here that deserves that opportunity to get it. And if I up in the States and I have all of this potential, exploit what's out there, So that was my mindset.
And in the process of doing that, you at the same time gaining experience.
Exactly.
Getting experience to come back home or to continue expanding your knowledge in the mainland.
So both, right? And so what Dominica, so again, I love my country. You heard me said that, I'm literally, as you can hear, we're having a Lakou conversation. The Lakou grew me. I was in church today for Father's Day. Like, I literally, every time I come home, I feel at home, right? To see my high school, my primary school teachers, to see people I grew up with, just everybody is just it's just love. I mean, they might because something like bicker with each other, argue with each other, but I tell them it's because they see each other all the time. Living down here and living in the U.S. is a completely different experience. I've lived in a neighborhood for 5 years. I know my neighbors probably by face, but I cannot tell you any one of their names. You can any one of that. And I come back home. I in Portsmouth. I see people I know. Any community I see people. Literally, I go to the supermarket. I sit down in a cafe, right? And it's just people I know. And it's just that is something that we tend to take it for granted down here, but it's really invaluable. One of the reasons that in the States they celebrate Thanksgiving, because I think probably the opportunity they get to see their family. I'm home, my auntie knocking, and this one there, right? And a lot of people from Dominica, they come home, I'm sure they have that same experience, right? The reason, again, they have Thanksgiving out there is that they don't get to see their family that often.
What would you make of students, maybe of your age at that time, of the United States as U.S. citizens versus that of Caribbean students, Dominican students, while at university? What do you make of them?
So it's a couple of things, right? I mean, I don't to necessarily cry down the school I went to. I didn't go to Harvard. I went to a regular university in the U.S., right? And what happens, like everywhere else, is like what you have, you cannot take it for granted. And if you come from, like us, you come from a background that, we were excelling there. All of us excelled, quote unquote, almost easily, right? Because we were used to, as I told you, used to studying in SMA, and the convent girls might tell you the same thing. You probably go back to convent and always study and study. You used to that study. When you see exams, I remember when we were studying, right, for exams in our colleges, most people that would be there, 90% of the people who study, and even if we made up about 10% of the population, were international students. Those American students were not there studying with us. They were just happy to see, some of them were just happy to see their way out, a majority of them, to just get a grade C so they could probably get, a government assistance. If you get less than a C, you wouldn't get that government assistance. And they were just happy with that.
Grade C?
Yeah, just see your way out. Just that's what they would call it, to see your way out. If you get a D, then you wouldn't get assist. If you get below a certain grade point average, you're just happy to get just enough. Right, and one of the reasons that they love international students in the U.S. is because it's the creme de la creme. You're getting the best of the best, people that want to achieve academic success, right? And we tend to be the harder workers because of that. Because some of us have student loans, we have this, we have things at stake. They don't,
Just want to say that Gerald Joe Fridges is watching. Makana Charles from Trafalgar is watching. Kilata Butler is watching. I'm not so sure what she meant when she said, fellas, square up. I'm not so sure what she means. Yolan Kepel is watching. And Jenny Williams is also watching. So we have a number of people actually still watching your interview, which is very interesting. Now, Patrick, the name Patrick John is synonymous to Patrick Roland John. While growing up, did anyone ever mention the possibility to visit Patrick John and to tell him something about you, Patrick?
I don't recall. I don't necessarily think so. The going permission, some people tease me PJ. I think actually after I got a little bit older, I realized I was actually named after Patrick John, right? When I was about 10 years old, it started to sink in, right? The importance of it. I think I probably met him on one or two occasions, just briefly, and the fun fact, he and me and his son Nairi John, we actually went to SMA together. I think Nairi, he and I actually went to SMA together for a few years.
That's good.
Yeah,
and I can imagine the kind of stories that you all would have had. Nairi loves to talk.
Yeah,
I'm not so sure how he entertained you,
Well, he actually wasn't, we are the same age, but he actually was already he was a brilliant kid. We were the same age, but he was already in third form when I was in first form.
He's already in third form when you're in first
Yeah,
form?
yeah. And again, another reason that didn't happen to me, and I was to get annoyed about it a little bit, because I had another friend. His name is Hassani Ferrara. He's in the States now. And I remember he been in Point Michel School with me, and I got to SMA, and he's in third form, and I'm in first form as well. It's like, because what happened is that Point Michel School at that time they decided they're gonna stop skipping students, right? But SMP and Convent Prep, they were still doing that, skipping you if you really intelligent, right?
So what happened? There are some students. If you, as you said, if you were in Convent Prep or in SMP, you would have gotten that opportunity. But strange but true, the SMP and the Convent Prep are two Catholic schools alongside that of St. Luke's.
Correct,
I wonder why would they have stopped?
I don't know. I think, know what I know about educational development? It made a lot of sense, especially when I look at the U.S. system. If you ever saw the U.S. system, they have something called primary or elementary, then they have middle school, and they have high school. And the middle school is where you're between the ages of like 10 and 13-ish, like before you become 13, like between 9 and 12, right? That's like kind of middle school. Because you're not necessarily, you can maybe be intelligent, but you're not emotionally mature to be with older kids. And I saw that firsthand as well. I know a number of you all know, like Juno Ferrara. And that was a good example. They skipped him, and he was like 9 years old. Like he's in the same class with me, and I'm 11 years old. He was the youngest guy in our class. And he was always in trouble because he was very intelligent, but he wasn't necessarily emotionally mature to be there. You get what I'm saying? So that made a lot of sense when they stopped doing that. You're not emotionally mature to be with his older kids. And that's the time when I came in, when the guys still had beard when they were in fifth form, right? you get what I'm saying? So that made a lot of sense to stop doing that. Even if you might be intellectually smart, you're not emotionally mature to be with older kids.
Nice comparison. I like that. Jolly Alfred, lady, she's also watching. Jolly, good evening to you. That's another wonderful soul from Dominica. I just want to say good evening to you. Now, Patrick, you said that you would have had a conversation or two with Patrick John. Would you ever remember the kind of conversation that you would have had?
It wasn't really deep though. It wasn't just getting to know the person. It wasn't, and that's one of the things someone that's really a big proponent of history. That's why if I had a do-over, I'd rarely do that. And another do-over I would have had is also people that have a lot of older parents, grandparents that's still of good, and like that 90 and that 100 years, and they still have full sense. Have a conversation with them, even record them talking about, these are people I would have known about slavery. Their grandparents would have been slaves. Have conversations about, if I could go back, these are the kind of stuff, right? I'd have a real deep conversation with Patrick John about, I'm a history buff, right? Just get his, just literally, as I said, I take that in. The same thing, if I could go back, my grandfather, one of my grandmother towards the end, she wasn't, she kind of was suffering from Alzheimer's. These people, I have conversations with them, especially the grandparents, asking them about slavery, asking them about what their grandparents were. You know what I'm saying? I grew up with my great-grandma, even that, right? My great-grandma lived to be 95, right? I was 19 already or so when my great-grandma passed, right? Knowing what I know now, I would have engaged in conversation.
The telephone has been ringing all night, but decided to just have conversation with you, and someone just called. Let me just see if the person's still on the line. Good evening to you, caller.
Hello, good evening.
Good. Sakafet, madame.
Mon la mon kachebe, mon la kakute zot.
Yeah, lidi mo vini asu.
Bon, puti.
Moi di kosa ou retourner avec pas crier moi.
Mon ou pas crier moi. Ou mon kachebe, ou ça. C'est ce qui n'est pour crier. Moi c'est pas pour crier. C'est ce qui est pour crier. Moi pas savez ça qui passe.
Georgiana,
Oui, qui ça qui
mon
passe.
mon prend du vin avant du vin pour moi.
Ah, d'accord. Ok, on va prendre ça avant mon doigt, hein?
Oui.
Voilà.
All right.
Eh bien,
Parlez.
c'est bien.
Ouais.
Mais moi, la qu'à écouter les autres, et puis c'est bien, il a changé tout ça qui il a été petit jusqu'à maintenant, là, il veut, bless his Seigneur. Donc, allez, God bless him, and continue. Mais, là, il était qu'à parler, là, il dit comme ça, c'est bon, ou dit les monatifs crazy, il pas que crazy, parce que c'était en manière, c'était comme vous même dit, ou attend ça, mon cas parlant plus ça de la pointe Michel. Mais c'était, nous de cas pour nager, et si les garçons étaient qu'à montrer nous nager, puis tout le monde qui était petit, et il tenait un petit caille à terre, c'était caille ici. Il tenait caille petits enfants, et caille ici, c'était juste d'eau. De caille de petits enfants, en mon cas ouest là.
Vous voulez parler anglais? Vous voulez parler anglais?
Yes, I can speak English, yes.
Ok, parlez petit anglais parce que là, ou déjà qu'à 20 moun.
C'est vraiment pas qu'à 20 personnes parce que pour mes qui ont quoi mon pas de nobody.
Non, moun là ni moun qui attend avec si vous pas à comprendre. Ouais.
And then someone would stay on shore. And then we'll help you to go to the rock of the call it house of Lisi, but it's Kaisi and Keol. And then when you trying to swim, one will stay by your side because that's for you not to get drunk, and they will help you to go. And when you reach on that rock, then you will stand up, and then again you have to go back to try to go by yourself. But you have somebody by yourself. They're not leaving you like that, and it was real fun. So that is the thing that all of us by Point Michel side, we enjoy that moment. It was real great, and all the children, they were together. Now, you're not find that like before, but it was great fun because the way that Point Michel see is not the same thing like before.
Right, and to
Right,
and
like
to
the
and
big
to add to my
school.
auntie point, nobody ever drunk and nobody ever end up in hospital.
No. It was real fun. Well, continue to talk about what about your studies. I like to hear that from where you coming from and where you reach. So God bless you, and also Cecil too.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Right now I'm talking from St. Lucia. I'm not in Martinique. I'm talking from St. Lucia.
Wasu
So I'm
vacances.
Oui, ma cafanti weekend là. Bon, papa les quel bon.
Moun qui n'y l'a jamais, vous savez bien.
Ah, voilà. Ou tout bon pour quoi? C'est ça qui fait mon qui n'y l'a là. Okay then.
All right, have a nice evening.
All
right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Listening to you all.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We have on the line, we have also watching, Melissa Skerritt is also watching. She always tune into the program. And thank you very much, Melissa, for watching. So yes, taking from what your auntie said, did you ever think that you would have been so successful as a boy in high school, then into college at this time of your life?
Yeah, yes. You know, and again, you saw it at a 10-year-old, right? You saw my interviews at 10-year-old, right? You know, so it was really for me, you know, call it manifest destiny, inevitable. There was never a doubt in my mind that I would have achieved the level of success that I have, and I still have more to achieve, right? And, you know, I always, you know, speak things into existence, right? You might, so at 10 years old, I say, come and hold me a scholarship. You might have said that, you know, I remember saying, when my friends would go to study, I say, when I'm ready, I'll go. Right? I don't know how I'm going to do it, but it's going to happen. Right? So there's never been a doubt in my mind that this would happen.
How your mom feels about you?
I mean, my mom is proud, and I tell people that I'm really a product of my mom, right? And my mom, you know, I want to say she almost lived vicariously through me. And what I mean by that is, I remember mom telling me that, you know, again, my mom had me at 17. Those 17-year-old should have a child. And it's just, especially now, right? And even back then, no 17-year-old should be raising a child. And I remember she telling me that she was like me. She was really brilliant up to about the grade 6, right? Just really good grades, and then she just followed the wrong crowd. And what she ensured that I did from day one is that I don't follow the wrong crowds. And she would tell me that ban Kimileo, those that don't understand Creole, will tell you that, the wrong crowd will lead you astray. And she always ensured that I didn't follow the wrong crowd, and she'd do it in her own way. If I didn't do well, or if I didn't get an A, if I didn't get 100%, it was never good enough. And I would hear it. I would hear it 24/7 for the entire summer. So if I don't hear my mother in my ear, right, and they ask me, what's the difference between you and your brothers, I just start listening to my mother. Everybody has their own, right, their own way of processing stuff and judging people and characterizing people. But my mom took a lot of sense into me, and I just listened to her. That's all I did.
You told us that you have 5 brothers, but you never gave us their names.
Oh, I have 4 younger brothers. So on the mother's side, my mom had 5 boys. I'm the oldest. So my brother after me is Nigel. Again, everybody in Point Michel has a nickname, so the name is Noose. The one after him is Daryl, they call him Labadi. And the one after him is Trevor, they call him Eyes. And the one after him is Travis, they call him Cut. And I have brothers and sisters on the father's side. Mm-hmm. Right, my dad died at 33 years old. He probably had about between 10 and 15 kids.
Wow.
There's still some of them I haven't met yet. Right?
Wow.
I now have 3 sisters. I've met all of them, but none of them are I probably have one brother in Dominica. I still haven't met him, but most of my brothers and sisters on the dad's side, they're not in Dominica. And that's one of the things.
I'm sure through that interview, Patrick, that brother of yours is going to call you during the week.
Yeah, I should get connected to him. And again, like as you know, again, I have a lot of uncles, and they probably definitely need to make an introduction. But the others are in Antigua, the Virgin Islands. I have a brother in Utah, right? And I met him for the first time in 2004 when he's getting married.
In the yard, we know we fight a lot, or we fought a lot in the yard. Your experience in the yard, even if you were shy, fellas, it's true you said that you had a bad family.
Yeah.
And people would not mess.
Correct.
But you would have sent a punch or two.
I couldn't fight, man. I think I would have sent a punch or two. I got into scuffles, and I think that my mindset was I think that if I had to really fight, I would hurt somebody really bad, And I think I would just I got really angry one time, and my nose started to bleed. That's the kind of rage I had. So I had to literally control my rage. So I get into scuffles. I don't think I won too many fights. That wasn't my thing. But I think my cousins, they're fighting for me. They were almost like my protectors, right? But fighting wasn't my forte. That wasn't my strong suit. But I didn't get, again, the thing I want to say almost like a good boy. So I wouldn't really look people trouble, and people wouldn't trouble me. I didn't know if they troubled me, what I was coming for them.
Are you married?
I am married. I'm married, yes.
And how many children?
I have 2 kids.
3.
So my wife is from Haiti. I have a 7. My daughter is 7, and my son will be 3 in July.
You have 3, you said?
No, my son will be 3 in July. I have 2 kids, a boy and a girl and a boy.
A girl and a boy.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I'm sure that you, from your marriage, you have learned quite a lot.
I have.
According to you, as a boy growing up, maybe your first girlfriend, maybe you would have been in 5th form.
Yeah, 5th form college, yeah.
You were not the limer.
Well, I limed. I just didn't have I was probably just too shy. I gave you the story, and I didn't think the confidence to say that, I didn't think I had much to offer them. I couldn't take them on a date. I couldn't buy them KFC. I couldn't buy myself KFC, right?
No, in those days, in your days, there was no KFC.
In that KFC,
KFC
just come on the scene in 94, 95. Yeah, they just come on the scene.
You mean KFC is that long in Dominica?
I mean, if they stop, but they just come on the scene. My cousin Erica was one of the first employees there.
Oh,
you know.
Where was that? Where was that office?
It's ready. I think where the
Ferrara building,
the floor building is.
Yes, where Ferrara.
Not floor. The
Digicel
building. I think that's where it was.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
It is the last.
Yeah. But again, you know, but it wasn't nothing serious, you know. I was talking to girls and that kind of stuff. But yeah.
No, Alvin Thomas says this is a powerful Lakou conversation, a moving story. Patrick, Blessed Mali said, great interview, great program, bro. Georgiana Charles said, not a bad family, a strong family.
Strong family.
I expect Georgiana to say that.
People need to be submissive first.
Because every time we talk to somebody in Point Michelle, they have to highlight the Felix family.
Yeah.
And they say, don't mess.
Yeah, our family is a strong family.
They say the girls will fight.
Yeah.
The boys will look on until they have to fight.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean,
that's amazing.
And the matriarch, you know, I said our grandmother was, you know, very powerful and very inspirational. She looked out for us. She guided us, and I want to say that, you know, she probably wasn't wealthy in terms of finance, but she was wealthy in terms of knowledge and the prayers and everything that she do, you know, and you know, to the point that I'll share that as well. She was, you know, she looked out for all of us, and her prayers works miracle, and she's our guiding force. You know, she kept us together, and I said, even, you know, both my grandparents, something that was very interesting about them is that they probably didn't get along well in the later years of their life, but all their kids and grandkids loved them equally. That is very rare. They did not even pick sides. If I talk to my aunties or anybody about my grandfather, it's the same love. If I talk to her about my grandmother, it's the exact same love.
But it's been said that Batia was a bad lady. Meaning,
she was strict.
Not bad in terms of bad, you know, but a lady that you couldn't mess with.
You couldn't mess with her. She was a rock.
She would walk with stones sometimes.
I don't know what that well,
that's just a plea.
All I can tell you is that my grandmother was so powerful.
Yes.
Right? That the Prime Minister was at her funeral.
Yes. That speaks volume.
That speaks volume.
Yes. And not only that, I got a story that one time in the middle of Point Michelle that she knelt to pray, you know, for the Honorable Prime Minister, you know, and that for me was very, very powerful.
Yeah, and her prayers work, man. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that.
Yes.
You know, and I'll tell people to this day, don't disrespect your elders. If they're praying for you, if any older person can pray for you, you know, let them pray for you. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, don't disrespect them. Don't you know, those prayers work. Mm-hmm. I'm a man of faith, prayers work. You know, she praying for the Prime Minister, you know, he'll get his blessings. If she prays for you, an elder person prays for you, your blessings will show up. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know? And I said she wasn't wealthy in terms of money, but her influence, her guidance, her love was uncomparable, right?
I can imagine. Matia.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you're talking about an elder in Point Michelle, you must speak of Matia.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have to talk a cultural elder, you must talk about Mr. Tia.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. That's honestly amazing. No, Patrick, you left Dominica. As you said, you came back on and off. What is your views about Dominica and the way we have begun to move forward in our development?
Well, you know...
Before you answer, can we just take a call quickly? Just remember the question.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening, caller.
Yes, me that here.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mama was a strong and a sweet woman, a sweet lady in Point Michelle, right? Mama was not a bad lady. Mama was somebody that you couldn't do what you feel like with her, and neither with her children. Mama was respecting the Point Michelle people, and so that they had to respect her. And Mama raised up her children to what we are today. And we are very proud of our mother and our father. So, and if Patrick reached there today where he is because of that mother lady. And as he said, Mama was a powerful lady. So not a bad lady. And Mama helped a lot of people in Point Michel, and they know it. Okay, continue.
Thank you. Yes, Patrick, go ahead with the question I ask.
Yeah, and you asking me about what I think about Dominica and where we are as a country and the way things are developing. I love my country and I admire it. I remember a few years ago, I was having a conversation with some of my friends, and I tell them, see what you guys want. I do not want Dominica to be like St. Martin and St. Thomas, and all these islands that supposedly have a high rate of tourism. And they kind of try to figure out, what did I mean by that? What I meant by that is that a lot of these hotels and these resorts in those places, they're not owned locally. They're owned by foreigners, right? And the jobs that these people have is not necessarily, they're being employed, but it's not necessarily the high paying jobs, right? It's almost like the reason that Castro took over Cuba, right? What is people? So if you again, I'm a history buff, right? So if you look at Cuba, what happened in Cuba is that the U.S. and some of those guys was almost the wealthier people was almost like exploiting the country, and they were just running casinos and kind of like that, just having resorts and just for the welfare of and the country is just poor and not getting richer, and that's the reason Castro was able to come and do what they did and how Cuba is, and what I felt was happening in these other islands is a version of that. The average person not necessarily enjoying the fruits of those things. Most of the money is leaving the country. So I think I admire, in a sense, that Dominica's approach, that a lot of these places have to be owned by Dominica, right? And also it didn't happen too quickly. It's more of a progress. It's more of it happened more progressively, right? Not just, okay, one day just seeing a bunch of resorts and a bunch of foreigners, and it's like, okay, what happened to our country? We're doing it more deliberately. So I enjoy that pace, right? And also, Dominica is home. Dominica is sweet. Dominica, if you talk to anybody anyway, you talk to people in the U.S. right now, they're going to complain about tariffs. They're going to say the country is hard. I talk to Dominicans, they say the country is hard, right? Everybody have their version of hard. What's hard for me? You may say I came from humble beginnings here. I would not trade humble beginnings in Dominica for humble beginnings in the U.S. And what I said about it is that when I'm in Dominica, I go down the street and I see somebody homeless or begging on the street. That person is a crazy or drug addict. In the U.S., you see homeless people out there, and it's regular people like me and you in the wealthiest nation in the world. You know what I'm saying? Before I went to the U.S., coming naive, I didn't think the U.S. had poor people. Because growing up, when I watch the TV, they're showing on Sundays, Save Africa, they're showing people ribs in Africa and India and raise money. Right? And when I went to U.S., it was a culture shock for me to see persons homeless and begging on the street, regular-minded people. You get my point? So, I don't want to say, and I don't know the person's and economic situation, but from a certain standpoint, Dominica is sweet. And the way Dominica is progressing, it's progressing okay. There's something that we call be careful what you wish for. Do it slowly but steadily. That's my stuff. And I try best to really stay away from Dominica politics, right? And I think that when it comes to politics in Dominica, the only advice I would have is that really don't talk about politics every day. Talk about politics every 5 years. Politics will divide us, and also you don't want to divide a country that's so small, right? You just have 70,000 people. That person, I would say, who wants someone from that party, that's someone I went to school with, right? That person I grew up with in Pomsha, that person I grew up with right there, So we shouldn't let politics divide us, right? Let politics play its process and do politics every 5 years. Don't do politics every day. But the country is the ironically reason we can talk about politics because this country is sweet. This country you cannot talk about politics. You know, the reason you can have your opinion and protest and do certain things because we're in a democracy, because the country that allows you to do that, right? I can be here and I can leave and probably walk to Point Michelle and don't feel like getting robbed. You know, that is sweet. You get what I'm saying? When they're showing when people come here on Airbnb, and one of the things that we brag about is that we're one of the safest countries in the world to be in, right? My wife is from Haiti. Guess what? We can't even visit Haiti. To compare and contrast that to how Dominica is.
No.
And things can always be better, and better is relative, you know.
And as we talk about transformation, we have seen your community, Point Michelle, has transformed.
Mm-hmm.
More so when you would have left, I'm sure, in the very early days, Union Estate wasn't what it is.
Right.
Today, as a matter of fact, I was saying on Friday, I think it was, I passed through Union Estate. And I said this place was filled with trees. And if you pass on the bayside, as a matter of fact, myself and Roy, we were together on Friday.
Right.
Because Roy is in Dominica. He came for Dale's opening of his his pharmacy.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were saying, boy, on the bayside, if you just stay on the bayside, you would never know what's happening at the back of Point Michelle. What is your views of the transformation in Union Estate?
Yeah, it's you use the right word, you know. That's a place that when I grew up, I remember being there is trees and cows, and us going to, you know, steal mangoes and guava and, you know, all that stuff that was there. And, you know, when water would go, they had a well there, we'd go there. And the transformation is very interesting. I want to say it's remarkable that, you know, that area has been developed and persons have property there, and right, it's good. I like to say it.
The buildings,
the structures,
yes, the roads, you know, the infrastructure.
Yeah. You know, it's pretty impressive. It's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I feel to call it New Lapuet because most people out there.
I like that. New Lapuet.
New Lapuet.
I suspect somebody's going to take that name tonight.
Because I don't know too many people out there. Right? If I go lower, I mean, the people I know that there's people that probably have property from Old Lapuet, if you call it that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of persons that's migrated here from other town, and yeah, you know, I actually ran into a friend of mine there. She's like, I live right there. I was like, I didn't know that. You know, it's Jalapuet, but it's good.
You have cousins that actually themselves in that transformation of the New Lapuet.
Correct.
Yeah. Also, too, I should also read from Miguel Murphy. He said, truly inspiring story, Patrick. Erica also made a comment on the same transformation that we just spoke about. And Julia Massicot says that she's watching. Now, if given the opportunity to represent Point Michelle, what is your first order of business?
So if given the opportunity to represent Point Michelle, what happened?
What is your first order of business?
My first order of business. That's a good question. And really, as I said, you know, I try to stay away from politics. Maybe, you know, I see the playing field need lights. You know, I'm a big sports fan, right? I would say put some lights in the playing field where my nephew was telling me they have to trade in Point Michelle. They have to trade in Soufouye, and Point Michelle have a playing field there. Maybe put some lights in the playing field, right? And, but yeah, that's, you know, that's probably one of the only things I can think about. I get a lot of fun about it. Right, about the first sort of business, you know, maybe get a collective knowledge from the community and find out what they would want, right? What else they would want, really get the people's input, you know. That's
as a matter of fact, your cousin has just said that lights coming, it's on the cards.
Yeah. So that's what I can say. If I have to give the look, right? You know, I think Point Michelle like a mini city, not bragging too much. I tell you, there's a New Lapuet and there's buses running all the time.
Most recently, Saturday, we saw the opening of a pharmacy, a new
right,
pharmacy.
Exactly.
There is a little store, a little supermarket. There's number of bars.
Yeah.
Every weekend there's life.
Yeah.
You know.
So I say there's too many things I can say. You know, I would just get input from if you talk to people in the community, they might say certain things, right? Maybe, you know, It's the same for if they build a new Lapwet, maybe just improve some of the infrastructure, add some more roads, going up to some of the, the area that's still being developed, right? Put some paved roads there. That's
like the area where Ian lives, right?
Right, that area there, right? To have some paved roads there would be a plus for people that building around there.
Your cousin said, Erica Louis Jules says, thanks to PM Skerrit, New Lapwet. So she's already adopting the name. Huh? She's already adopting the name.
So we have an old tongue and a new tongue, an old Lapwet and a new Lapwet.
Yes. That's amazing. That's amazing. I saw a picture. I want you to tell me a little bit more about it. I'm going to show it to you. Tell me a little bit more about it.
No, my screen is not running right now.
The screen not running?
No. And why are you doing that again? I think
why.
some persons missed it earlier. I'm part of a committee where we're raising funds to repair the roof of SMA. A lot of students are being educated at SMA right now. So if you're listening, you want to share it or even make a donation, you want to go to smalumnifunds.org. Right, that's a plug I'm giving for that committee and that initiative I'm a part of. And I'm very passionate about SMA, and I can easily say without SMA I wouldn't be where I am today. And St. Margaret's Academy, the brothers, the work they've done. And sometimes we like to think that when it comes to things like that, that is someone else that has to do it. We are that someone else. It's a private, SMA is a private school. SMA is not a government school, right? We are that someone else. And there's an impact. There's persons like me that's not being educated right now in SMA. So I, just share that link. It could be $10, it could be $20. Just make a donation. That will go a long way, right? To having a roof where I would estimate that about 100 to 200 persons haven't been educated at SMA over the last 3-4 years because of that roof that's being repaired. But I didn't ask you, Cecil, what school you went to? Grammar school?
No, I'm an SMA man.
You're an SMA man. So I can see a donation there.
I think I have done that already, but I'm going to do one this week again.
Okay.
I mentioned to someone that I'm going to.
And share it, man.
Yeah.
I say we like to look at, I remember having a conversation, one of my best friends, he's from St. Lucia, and he actually went to the SMA. His brothers, these guys went out over the Caribbean, that Catholic community, and really influenced and built schools and had initiatives like that. And he went to the SMA equivalent in St. Lucia. And a few years ago, he was telling me he went to the school and he said he's still at the school and why they're not doing better. I was like, why did not someone is not doing better to take care of the school? I was like, guess what? You are that someone. That's your school, right?
I would have to read what Erica sent me. Erica said, Old Lapwet, Patrick John. New Lapwet, Skerrit, PM Skerrit. My star prime minister. So much more to come under Dennis Charles. That lady not easy. I was saying to you in reference to the picture.
Which picture? Can I see the picture?
Yeah, you just said that. It says how to track. What's that about?
I not seen the picture though.
No, I know, but I'm just saying to you.
Am I in athletic gear?
Huh? You are in.
I was in a tech conference. So again, I like to give back, right? So that tech conference is something called WordPress. WordPress is a platform that powers about 40% of the internet websites. So most websites you see are built on WordPress. And WordPress was developed, I can't remember his name right now, but it was developed by two guys, and it's really community driven. And what they would have done is they would have different conferences in different cities in the U.S. And I was one of the persons leading that conference, and I was pointing to that how to do certain things in WordPress track. I actually met the founder of WordPress, the creator of WordPress as well, and he's a pretty interesting guy, very interesting guy.
Some time ago, I saw a photo with you. Is it a photo or a video where you are actually teaching a class of seniors?
Yeah, so I do. As I do workshops. I enjoy teaching. I do workshops. I teach IT related stuff. I speak and I do inspirational speeches. And part of several Chamber of Commerce's, Rotary Club. So when you ask me what my contribution going to be to Dominica, that's my contribution. So all of those things that I learned from the US, I'm going to come back here and start implementing some of those things that makes a difference in people's lives. You know, one of the things I don't like to see is that we copy things from the US culture that doesn't serve them and doesn't serve us, right? Like that's one of the things I saw that we adopted here, and I cringed when I saw it. Is that I mean, yeah, they're making money, to quote unquote hurt their business, but that payday loan, that cash, whatever it's called, where you go and, you get that cash advance, right? That's one of the worst things ever. You know what I'm saying? Where you get your paycheck in advance, and then you have to give them back and give them X amount. That is something I wish we had never adopted. That should never come in. That's not a good. That is not something that helps. The only person that helps is the owner of the company.
But you said that your company is helping to improve returns to investment. That's what you said your company is about.
Correct. But it helps return investment by doing digital marketing. So it puts you. So if you have a company, right, and someone searches for you, make sure that you show up first on the internet. If someone does a Google search for your product or service, right, then you show up first. If you're like, especially like Dominica is small, if Dominica, the company Dominica that would benefit from it a lot is those that are trying to get tourists to come to their premises. We do something called search engine optimization, right? We run paid ads, that kind of stuff. In the US, that has more business competitive. We help them, show up first on Google and get a return on their digital marketing spend.
All right. So I just want to say to Alvin, yes, I'll be making my contribution tomorrow. I hope my contribution is satisfying you. And now the other one that I saw, the other photo that I saw, it says boot camp.
Yes, so I'm very, and again, you bring up a lot of stuff that I'm passionate about, right? I'm passionate about health and fitness. So I did something called obstacle courses. So that's why it's the boot camp. So if you ever saw like some of the military training where you crawl on the barbed wire, you climb fence, I would train for these courses. I also do something called triathlons. You know what's a triathlon? Right? Yep. You swim, bike, and run, right? And one of my goals is to do something called an Ironman. An Ironman is where you swim for 2.4 miles. Sorry, you swim for 2.4 miles. Then you bike for 112 miles. And then you run a full marathon afterwards. That takes your real Ironman, and that takes endurance, and that takes training. And what it does is that one of the things that we're going to do when you get older is really challenge our mind. These are called endurance sports, right? Running a marathon, right? One of the things I intend on doing is actually hiking the entire Waitikubuli Trail.
How long you're here for?
I don't know it now. I think I'll be leaving in the second week of July, right? And I'll be back here every summer as well until I eventually move back. But yeah.
What's your intention to move back home?
What is my intention?
I said it's your intention to.
It's my intention. I think as far as the U.S. goes, I think I've accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish over there. I think the two other things I want to accomplish is, just for my own self-serving purposes, is to have like a PhD, right? So when it's all said and done, I'll be Dr. P with the coffee mug and the tweed jacket and lecturing at colleges and universities, and more likely down here in Dominica, right? And just holding my speaking career, right? Inspired, as I told you, I'm very passionate about mental health, mental illness, and recently we had an SMA. It's one thing. I heard the young man committed suicide, and I started to cry on additional. I heard there's an SMA alumni, SMA student, and there's part of the reason for that is there isn't enough positive messages out there, right? Really, we need to be sharing more positive messages. I know we easily, you heard me say it you heard me share it before, right? We're 2,000 years removed from biblical times. And in those times, the only thing that there's nothing in those times as far as technology, the way we bathe, the way we eat, hygiene, right? Whatever we do, our day-to-day, we're in an air-conditioned room. If you brought someone from that time here now, they'll just be like, wow, what is going on? So nothing of that time is applicable. We're not using any technology from that time. But we have the Ten Commandments, and it's sadly just as applicable 2,000 years ago, and it's very applicable today. Every single statement in that Ten Commandments. So that should say a lot about us as a society. So that's when we're seeing, that's what causes all the strife we have in the world and the suicides, all of that. We're still morally corrupt as a society, right? I mean, technology, people are scared of AI. We're not scared of AI. We're scared of ourselves and our morals. Our morals haven't improved. We just have more ways to do harm to each other. And we also have more ways to do good to each other. We need to focus on the good.
What do you think what it was that we are witnessing today?
We've had wars, the same thing. That's another thing that's relevant from biblical times. These guys still fighting each other. It's the same thing. We just have more ways to destroy each other. It's the same. It hasn't changed. You get my point? That's one thing that's consistent in history. Wars, and more wars. Until we start to really focus on loving each other, and seeing each other as one people, we'll always have wars. And yes, fortunately, we're in Dominica, we're safe from those things, and we have to keep it that way. We have to focus on loving each other. We cannot stop wars, right? I told you, the main reason for what I explained to you is that the Ten Commandments is still valid today, as 2,000 years ago. When that Ten Commandment becomes invalid, that's when we'll stop having wars. And no matter what religious belief you're in, whatever spirituality, if you read the Ten Commandments, it will resonate with you. And that when those 10 commandments become irrelevant, that's when we'll stop having wars and people kill each other.
You sound very much like a politician of the present, and you also sound like the kings of old in the Old Testament. Give me your conclusive words as we come to the end of the program.
Yeah, so I'll still plug back SMA and my upbringing, and I enjoy the conversation. I enjoy the Lakou conversation, and we get into that idea of old Lapwet and new Lapwet, but even from a way of being, right, the old Lapwet and the old DA was good already. The community raised the kid, my village raised me, right, and I have nothing but love for everybody I grew up with. I cannot think of anybody in Point Michel I have any kind of animosity towards, and that speaks volume. And even growing up, I think I got along with everybody. You know what I'm saying? They may have beef with my family, but they probably didn't have beef with me. And that's but I say that it's because, even the same way that brothers and sisters fight, we grew up like brothers and sisters in that community. I remember one of the ways that I grew my business is, as I said, I grew out of my shyness. I worked on myself. A lot of what is called personal and professional development. I do Toastmasters. I do a lot of work on myself. And the way I grew my business is by attending business chamber of commerce's business networking group. And I remember when Hurricane Maria hit, I was raising funds and raising stuff to send down to Point Michel, to send down as much supplies as possible at hurricane relief. And I remember speaking at a networking function, and at that time someone asked me about the hurricane, like the impact of the hurricane, and I just found out that day that what happened in Point Michel, the number of persons that passed away from that ravine and whatnot. I just started to cry in front of everyone, like hundreds of people. I just started to cry because guess what? I knew 90% of these people. They're like brothers and sisters to me, right? And we're talking about Lakou. That's the impact of the Lakou growing up in a village, in a community that takes care of everybody. We crowd each other, we do each other, but at the end of the day, we still love each other. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You get what I'm saying? So that's what I want to be my parting words again. Everybody has their version of Lakou, right? Keep loving each other, help each other, and be positive. You can quarrel, but quarrel is part of the process. And I said, if this life was easy, we'd just check out a long time ago. We came here for the challenges, right? There's a reason that the doctors have a job, the lawyers have a job, right? Everybody has a job because of the experiences that we have, and we're really in that experience. That's the reason that there's churches. That's the reason that everything exists. That's what we came here. This life is fun. Make it fun, love each other, and stay positive.
Okay, Patrick, thank you very much for this beautiful interview. Your cousin says, great job, Pat. Safe drive back home. One love. Your aunt said, Pato, good night. The conversation was very interesting. Be safe on the road. One love. And I want to say to you, Patrick, thank you for the opportunity given to me to interview you or to have a chat with you and to give you a Lakou experience. For those of you who just joining in the middle of the program, that Patrick, his name is Patrick John Alexander. His name was given to him by his grandmother. She felt the importance of giving him the name of Patrick John because he was born the night. He was the first baby to be born the night or the early morning of independence. And so his name, Patrick John, his godfather in church is Oliver Seraphin. His cousin, I think, is Mr. Edison James. And then Dame Eugenia Charles, was his grandmother's cousin. So that tells you that this guy is born of greatness. So thank you very much. Great program. Good positive vibes by Patrick. Ending the conversation. These are the words of Alvin Thomas. And you are invited. Well, someone said, Miss Sweeney, Peter Sweeney said, you are invited to the Nature Isle Toastmaster Club. When? He needs to know when. You can call me. I can give you the number that you can reach him. Because I think, as you rightly said, he's needed in the Toastmaster Club in Dominica. So thank you again very much, Patrick. And continue doing Dominica proud. Continue doing your family proud, and continue making your family, your immediate family, your wife and children proud as you continue striving and succeeding in the future. God bless you, and good night.
The question, of course, will be not can the Europeans come up with a united position to try and put some, influence on the conflict. The key question will be, can the Europeans and the other leaders that are here put some pressure or encourage or shape some of the thinking in Donald Trump? He is the only person who has potential influence and leverage over the Israelis.
In other news, Donald Trump has ordered US law enforcement officers to carry out the single largest mass deportation program in history, signalling his intent to ramp